Hi, I'm Abby and welcome to Abby's Den. So I've decided that I have spent far too much money buying threads that I don't like. Let me show you what we're looking for. So see how these lines here are very single. I want to be able to see that my stitches come out and are vibrant and show up. So a thread needs to be able to show these single lines off. The thread also needs to be able to fill this satin stitch evenly for me. I've got lots of colouring in and I've got lots of blending going on. So I've got between the white and the pink there, I've got some blending going on. Our next threads are the Gunolds, and again they have a brother number chart that correlates their colours with the numbers on the brother sewing machines. You can go straight to their website. I'll put the link below, and I'll find out the proper colours. I've got a feeling, I don't think I've got all the colours that I need for this. So here we go. This is the Gutterman finished. There is a little bit there, but the needle broke there and it broke in another couple of places. I can reference that back on the videos. I think it might be the stitch out because there's still holes in this. The back looks great, so the tension is fine. Let's label this up and let's move on to the Madeira. Okay, so I've slowed the machine down a little bit, which means the project will take a little bit longer for the Madeira thread as well. It might be that these threads are rather fine. Multi-talent stitch out, let's remove that from the hoop. And again, we've got that puckering. Yeah. So there it is, unhooped. Again, I left the fabric as natural as possible in there. There is some puckering, I'm not sure why. But let's put it up with the others and start on the last one, which is the sim thread. Okay, so the sim thread has shredded in the needle already. Now you can see behind me lots of threads hiding my Innovis V5, 7 different brands of thread here, just to see the difference in the quality. They've all been bought by me. I've not been sponsored by anybody, so there's no favoritism on the needles, on the threads, on the fabric or anything like that. I've kept it as fair and as unbiased as I possibly can. So I've used the same brand of needles, I've used fabric from the same bolt. Then I've used a good quality tearaway stabiliser, which I've bought on a big roll. There are so many people buying so many different threads, and the question comes up again and again, which thread shall I buy? And there's a massive difference in the price. So let's have a look at the stitch outs and see the results of these threads. See, so you can see the different kinds of puckering that you get with each one. So they've all been mounted exactly the same in the hoop. Some have puckered more and some not so. And for example, that one's puckered hardly at all. There is one slight puckering there, but I notice that's the same on absolutely all of them. So I'm believing that's the stitch out rather than, it's the design rather than the stitch out. And this one hardly has, well it has actually, it looks quite bad on the screen. Didn't look so bad sat down. I'm going to put them in order of puckering. So here we are, here's the order in the best for puckering. So as we go down the row of stitch outs, you'll see the most puckering. Now these last ones were very close, but I think with this one you can see some puckering from the bottom stitches, as well as these aren't as good, and actually they look worse on camera, but in real life this one's a lot smoother at the bottom than that. I'm going to put them in order. This one's the best one, that was Embroidery Thread, and if we go all the way down to the other end, we'll see it was Sim Thread. I'll put them in order on the board. So if I mark 7 for the best score and go down, so in order for the best one, Embroidery Thread came up as the best, then it was the Marathon, so that gets a 6, Multi-Talent and the Madeira came in next. Then it was very close between the Gutterman, Gunold and the Sim Thread, but I think Sim Thread was probably the worst because there was more puckering at the bottom. Coverage is really an important factor. I don't know if you can see that some of the threads haven't managed to cover the whole of the fabric, and you can see some light fabric coming through. That's okay. I mean, these are tiny and marginal, but if you're doing, say, a black jersey with a blue a yellow logo, you don't want to see flecks of black through your logo. So we need to put it in order of coverage. So that's the next category. Coverage is a very important factor. If you're going to put bright yellow onto a black shirt, you don't want to see flecks of the black jersey coming through. So I put this pile of embroidery designs in order. I think this one is the most flawless. I can see some yellow on the red, but you know, I don't think my black jersey would show through. So that to me was the best one. And then if I keep going, you can see what I'm looking for. So I can see some gaps there. So that was the next one. And there was just a tiny fleck on the curve there. This one showed a little bit around the edges. So I can see some fabric showing through. This was a lot more noticeable. You see a lot more coming through there. And then again, I can see even more fabric showing through. I think this isn't so much fabric as it is the density of the threads, and the needle has pierced through the fabric, and you can see that there, and you can see that there. Okay, the next one, again, now there's gaps between the actual fibres of the threads, so the threads are not matching up at all, and there are lots more gaps between each strand actually. And then I didn't like this one either because I felt I was seeing too many gaps again, and actually it's not as bad as the other one, is it? Oh no, that was it. So if you see the flower there, what happens is the flower has lost its shape there. The strands haven't managed to keep the shape as well, and I don't think it's to do with the digitizing. I think it is to do with the strands, because the needle broke a few times on this project actually, and I'll talk more about that another time. Right, let's call this one coverage. So coverage, and that's how much fabric is actually being covered. And in order of the best, getting the highest score, again, it was the Embroidery Thread. The next one was Multi-Talent, so that was a 6, and the Marathon received a 5. The Madeira was 4th, and what was the next one? Gunold, Gutterman, and sadly Sim Thread came in last, and that was because of the the direction of the threads not going in the places they needed to. So that would worry me if I was putting a yellow thread on a black jersey. I don't feel confident the stitch out would be as well. So maybe that's something I should do. I'm talking about tension this time, and it's not the tension at the back, although you can see that on the back some of them are a little bit messier than others. I've put it in reverse order this time, and what I'm actually looking for, and you'll see why this one actually came out the worst, because apart from being very messy at the back, you can see that there are threads and loops coming up all around the fabric. It's not just the red thread, some on the brass, and then there's some on the green and some on the white. So I wasn't very happy about that stitch out at all. And to be fair, I actually did that one twice, but the second time, this is the original one, but the second time it came out just as bad. And I was a little bit concerned because straight after that my machine had to go in for a service, so I don't know what happened. Here you can see threads coming up. I don't know what happened there, but the needle did break. Don't know what caused that to happen. But it's quite dense over there, and the tension, you can see the fabric is being pulled. But other than that, I was quite pleased with that one. I wouldn't be too upset with that. Again, on this curve, this seems to cause a lot of trouble for all of them. So this caused problems for here, and there are a few pulls up, but other than that, the shapes are beautifully stitched out. So it gets difficult to see. So it's really, you've got to be really pernickety at this point. So these are very, very good. Again, it's around there. I don't know if the camera will pick it up for me. And that's really it. And then I had these two, and I can barely tell the difference in them. So a lot of yellow. Oh, these three. So there's a little bit there. Here we go. These are the last two. So that sits nice and flat. So that one was a little bit bumpy like the rest of them, but this one sits nice and flat all the way across. And look at the beautiful tidy work at the back. And again, this one's even tidier on the back, and again sits flat. So I think this one wins this time, just by a fraction, just because I'm looking at the back and deciding that's the better one than the other. So I'm going to mark them up on the board. Okay, so this category is tension. So the best one was marathon this time, so that scores the high 7. Bro thread came in next with a 6, and it was so marginal between them that it's hardly worth putting them separate like that. The gunnold again was brilliant. It was just when it went round the curve, and again that had the same issue for multi-talent. So these are very close, but I have ranked them in order. Madeira was noticeable. There were a few loops on there, as there were on the Gutterman, and by far the absolute worst one was Sim Thread. It was with all the colours. Every single colour had loops on it. Go back and watch the video and you can see that for yourself. And just to make sure it wasn't the stitch out that I did at that time, I redid it, and the second one that I did had the same issue. So I know it's not the machine, it was not the conditions I applied, it is, and it must be the thread there. So here we are. These are all 7 of the stitch outs. I want to share the light factor with you. I'll explain that in the next video. I'll also share with you how much these threads cost me per 100 metre, because I think that one came up as an interesting fact too. And then people have suggested that I stitch these threads out in just the black thread, and that was a really good point to raise, because the black thread usually is the difficult one. It's hard to dye anything black. So we want to see the quality of the black thread. So we'll do that in the next video, and then I'll give you an overall result. So I'll see you then. Subscribe and you'll be notified as soon as the result comes up. See you then.